right, today we're going to predict the NBA plot lines for the 25-26 season with Amin Elhassan. Amin, how you doing today?
What's up, KOC? What's going on, man?
I'm doing great, man. I'm looking forward to the season. We got preseason games starting up now, but I want to look ahead to opening night and the season ahead. What are the stories going to be? What are the things that fans are going to be talking about the most? What are we going to be talking about on our podcast throughout the year? So I want to start off with you. We're going to go back and forth with four each, some plot lines that are going to be stories this year. I mean, what's your first one?
What's going to happen with the Clippers? Like this can't be anything other than number one on everyone's agenda, because this has real implications that go far beyond opening week, opening night, or whatever. This could not only impact this season for the Clippers, but perhaps the next few 4, 5, 6 seasons. You know, if the league comes down with the type of judgment that is within its purview, you're talking about something that could set this franchise back for quite a while.
Absolutely could, and no doubt about it. And they're already in a position where they don't have any picks until, I believe, 2030. And so if those picks were to be taken away in the distant future, if they were to trade those picks, as Tom Haverstraw had said, maybe they should try to trade them. They could take away picks after the 7-year rule. You know, they could go even deeper to try to really punish the Clippers. And I mean, ultimately, man, it's going to be fascinating just to see what route the NBA does go here, because everything you've done, you know, on Pablo's show, great job, by the way, with how you guys have handled it. Thanks. It seems like it's been a lot of fun seeing that information, flipping those papers over. It seems like this is enough based off of the rules of the collective bargaining agreement. The circumstantial evidence is pretty unexplainable, right? But does the NBA just want to sweep this under the rug because they know there's other teams that have done this, and it opens up a can of worms that they don't want to do?
Yeah, it's funny. You know, a lot of people, these nuts about the Constitution, always say, oh, the framers, they knew back then and they predicted all these problems. They're like, could they really? Whoever the lawyers that wrote Article 13 of the collective bargaining agreement, that I feel like I'm in a common law relationship with at this point. I've read Article 13 so many times. It is so good. They figured out everything, every little angle. They got it. It's like, if this happens. And so the two parts that I keep coming back to is one clause that says services rendered, fair market value for services rendered for a third party, right? That's one. And two is, you mentioned it, is there a rational explanation? Circumstantial evidence that cannot be rationally explained other than there's cap circumvention going on. Those two parts right there seem to be the thing that make this an open and shut case. But as you said, I don't know. There are other political pressures to it. I quote the late, great Jerry Tarkanian. What he said? He said, the NCAA was so mad at Kentucky, they decided to hit Fresno State with another sanction, right? Like the idea that, like, yeah, these rules apply, but only for certain people. And the thing that complicates the story, obviously, more than anything, Kevin, is that Steve Ballmer seems to be a very well-liked and respected guy by a lot of people. I've said this a bunch of times. If this were Jim Dolan, if this were the Knicks, they would have thrown the kitchen sink at him. I think it would have been it would be a swift and unequivocal adjudication. But because I think people like Steve Ballmer, and obviously he represents a massive amount of wealth and power, I kind of don't want to see the book being thrown at a guy who seems to be like a pretty cool guy, all things considered.
For sure. I mean, but you have to do it, though, if there is enough to show that this guy and the people around him did indeed what it seems like that they did. And ultimately, for the Clippers, this being part of the story, because it could deter other teams from doing it if they do punish them, or it could influence other teams to say, well, they got a little slap on the wrist, we're going to decide to do this. And then for the immediate future, from a pure basketball standpoint, how does this affect the team that has championship aspirations? Will it be something looming over the team? Will it be something that, if it's a penalty involving Kawhi, that it removes him from the team, suspends him from the team? Or do the Clippers actually exist as a contender in this immediate season? Never mind all the long-term stuff. There are implications for this particular season and the teams in the West that are trying to make the playoffs. And any amount of time any player misses due to injury, suspension, or whatever else could be the difference between making the playoffs, being in the play-in, or just being in the lottery. And so in the short term, there's big implications here too.
Well, and the interesting thing we've been talking about all along is the joke is, oh, it would be doing the Clippers a favor if they voided Kawhi Leonard's contract, whatever, because the idea is that because he hasn't been available, right? And how big would the uproar be if Kawhi Leonard had been healthy and available and the Clippers had been winning a lot more games and going deep in the playoffs and maybe even a championship? Would the outrage and uproar be louder if that were the case? Clearly, he wasn't any of those things, and so we don't have that. That's a hypothetical, but here's the part that's not a hypothetical. He's healthy now for the first time in a very long time. What if he's awesome right now? What if the Clippers are the number 1 seed? Then what happens to the conversation? It goes, whatever, like they paid all this money for the injured guy. Now all of a sudden, if he's playing the way that we know he's capable of playing and the Clippers are winning, how does that flip the conversation? Like, wait a second, they cheated and they shouldn't be able and all that stuff. In the meantime, as the investigation goes on.
Do you think the Clippers have a chance to be that good?
I do. Look, they certainly have went old, right? Yeah, Chris Paul, you had Bradley Beal. You're kind of pushing your chips to the middle of the table of, hey, give me guys that were drafted between 2005 and 2010, right? But the reality is, when healthy, and I know that's a big if, but it's like when healthy, like this has a very full roster. They went out and they added John Collins and as I said, Beal and Paul, and it's a lot more full of a roster. They're diverse. They can defend. We know they're tough as hell, right? They're well coached, and they've got a guy in Kawhi Leonard who, like, again, the question is never his basketball ability. It's his availability. So when he's out there, he is one of the single most destructive offensive forces we have in the game. You put it all together and you say, oh, and look, this is a team that came within a 7th game of beating Denver, who came within, however close of beating Minnesota, right? Like, so there's a lot, like you said it yourself, the margin of error in the Western Conference is very small. So it doesn't really take a massive effort if you're good enough, and I think the Clippers are good enough. All you really need is some bad luck breaking the other way, like what happened to Denver in the 2nd round last year with Aaron Gordon getting hurt. It's like, all you really need is that. And that creates a separation. I said Minnesota. They played Oklahoma City in the 2nd round. I'm tripping, but you get the point. Right?
In 2025, they lost to Denver, and 2024 lost to Dallas. I'm just going back year by year. And 23 lost to Phoenix. 2022, they did not make the playoffs. 2021, they lost in the Western Conference Finals to the Suns. So
Suns,
fallen short a bunch of times, but like a lot of like competitive teams. And I think, on paper, I love their front court versatility. I think there's a lot there that's interesting. And despite the age of the team, to me, it's not about age as much as it's about health with them. And ultimately, this whole Clippers situation, that is going to be something that looms and that we don't stop talking about until the NBA makes a decision. And if they do, it could have a significant effect for this season itself. Do you have any plans of recording with Pablo again anytime soon?
I'm not at liberty to say.
Okay. Okay. Not at liberty to say. Let's move on to number 2, my first one here. What heights does Victor Wembanyama reach? We saw their inter-squad scrimmage with him just plowing through Luke Cornett on transition. Looked like Giannis Antetokounmpo. We have Victor Wembanyama saying he worked harder than anybody this offseason. He was, of course, training with Bonks. He spent time with KG, among others. And, I mean, look, I think with Victor, he already is an unbelievable talent. But he very clearly has little things that he can get better at that aren't actually so little. They're actually pretty important. Last year, as an isolation scorer, he was only in the 17th percentile according to Synergy, shot only 33% out of isolations. We know how much he shoots 3-pointers, but with the Spurs situation, a lot of non-shooters or below average shooters on the team, how effectively are they going to be able to get Victor at the rim at an even more increased rate than he already can? And so as much as you like the Fox fit and the Harper fit and Castle after his great rookie season, how do those guys fit with Victor? And Fox might miss the beginning of the season as well. So with Victor, does he become like a top 5 player in the NBA this season, or he's still more in that top 10, top 15 range? And what did the Spurs look like around him? To me, that is one of the bigger stories of this year ahead.
Yeah, top 5 might be a little bit of a stretch. I mean, there's some really good players in this league, so top 5 it might be a bit soon. But
you saw ESPN put him at 5 on their top 100 list, and dude, I'm the dude. I had Victor top 10, I think, before anybody, and people told me it was too soon. It wasn't. I don't think it was too soon. Top 5, boy, it's a little too soon for top 5.
I think sometimes we conflate where someone's going with where they are. He's going to be there for sure.
Yes.
He's not there yet. I don't think. Again, there's some great players who are still playing right now, right? You want to say top 5, we're talking about the MVPs, right? Like, we're talking about Jokic, we're talking about SGA, we're talking about Giannis, right? That's 3 already. So, and then, is he better than Steph? I don't think he's better than Steph, so I throw Steph there. And then, is he better than Luka? I don't think he's better than Luka right now.
Not yet.
Luka.
No.
And so, that's just me off the top of my head. Like, I go roster by roster. I don't think he's better than this guy, whatever. But we see it. It's happening, right? Like, because the train's arriving in the station on time. And the weight gain, the strength gain, so the core strength is big. I remember this with Brandon Ingram. Came in the league and was really skinny and struggled his rookie year. And I remember saying, like, he knows what to do. He's not soft. It's just he's physically not strong enough. He's playing against grown men. And the biggest thing is not him putting on a bunch of muscle or whatever, but it's core strength. It's the ability to run, come shoulder to shoulder off a screen and not get shoved far off course because I don't have the core strength to hold my ground, so to speak. So he did that. He's always been really incredibly flexible, which is good, and I think that's going to help for injury prevention. And then you talked about working with KG, working with Hakeem. He's got all this other skill stuff that, like you said, he needs to get better at. He needs to be more efficient. But then the next part of this is who's coming with me, right? So Fox being out, that's a problem because, again, they didn't play a whole lot last year either because of injuries. So how can we get them on the same page so that they have a chemistry that's being built, right? And then Dylan Harper and Castle and everyone else kind of get in where they fit in. And how can we now transition from last year, which is we're scrappy, but the expectation is we're not going to win games, to now, no, these possessions matter. We're not just rolling the ball out. We're not just letting him figure things out as they did for his first 2 years. Now he has to learn how to be judicious with his touches and his impact in the game.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's been Victor's missed time as well. Popovich, of course, unfortunately has moved to the front office after his health scare last year. Mitch Johnson, middle of the season. What does he look like as a head coach installing his stuff? Is it copy and paste what Pop's done? And, I think ultimately this roster needs to come around. I mean, Dylan Harper needs to prove he can shoot. Castle needs to get better as a shooter. Fox and Wemby were not great together in the very tiny sample last year. What did they look like over the course of the season as well? And all of that's going to directly impact how Victor looks and then therefore how the Spurs look as a team. What's your next one, I mean?
Oh, okay. So my next one is what I affectionately have been calling the Golden State Warriors. What happens next, right? The Kuminga was this thing that hung over their entire offseason. It delayed the signings of Al Horford and DeAnthony Melton. They finally got him 2-year deal, team option on the second year. For a Golden State, a very important victory in terms of how this contract is structured, because basically this deal is made to move, right? I think everyone recognizes Jonathan Kuminga does not fit the way Golden State wants to play unless Golden State's desperate because a bunch of people got hurt. Right? That's basically been his storyline. And so the talent is there. You give him a contract that compensates him appropriately, I think, in the short term, but at the same time, isn't this massive thing that anyone else down the line who wants to acquire him has to deal with 3 more years of this or whatever. So in a very real way, Jonathan Kuminga is not even in their plans, I don't think, for this season. I think this is a guy that's, again, priced to move January 15th as soon as he's eligible to get traded. I think they're going to go and try and get more depth and more kind of weapons in their arsenal for a team that, as we said, is pretty old. You talk about Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, Al Horford, Draymond Green. These guys are all 34, 35 and up. That's a lot of old dudes that you're counting on, in essence. And so they've got to get some more that weird in between young vet, like not too young to not understand how the game was played, but not too old to where now we're dealing with your injury issues as well.
So with them, you mentioned going to get pieces. Do you think the Warriors are more likely to like combine salaries, like Kuminga at 22.5 plus Hield plus Moody for like a star type player making 40 plus million, or is it more like they're angling for like a Trey Murphy, somebody like that, or multiple pieces? Like, what way are you going for the Warriors?
I think option B. I think your stars are your stars. You got Jimmy Butler, who's an incredible possession type offensive talent. Like, hey, we need one. Get you down there, get some free throws, get something around the basket. You got Steph Curry, who goes without saying what he is. I think you're good on the stardom.
So no Lowry Markkanen. You're knocking him off your list. No Lowry.
To me, I think traditionally Golden State has been successful. If you look at their championship years, having a bunch of really smart dudes, guys who have been in the league, they know how to play. They're over the politics of, hey man, I can't believe I'm not starting. Like, no, I get it. I'm here to help this team win. That's what makes them. Going back to even with Durant, like everyone kept, yes, obviously Durant, Klay Thompson, and Steph Curry together is a mind, right? But the part where they killed you for real was they'd roll out David West and Sean Livingston and like all of these just savvy, shrewd dudes. They were way better than your 6, 7, 8 guy. Everyone on the Warriors was just a smart player who knew how to play, right? The last championship, Bielitsa and Gary Payton, right? And like all these guys were just, they knew how to play. They knew what they were doing out there. And I think that's what this team needs to go back to. You can't rely on, as well as they play Brandon Pajemski and Quentin Post and all that, like, you can't rely on young guys like that in the playoffs. You need guys that are a little bit more experienced. And if those guys come along, that's great. But you can't just say, we're good. We're satisfied in that area. I think they're stars. You're good. You check the boxes. You're good on stardom. Now it's about building a complete team.
Interesting. I mean, I haven't thought a lot about like the side you're detailing for the Warriors because they have a lot of like guys. Like if you look at their depth chart, I mean, like there's going to be solid players. Santos might not get minutes. Like Seth Curry might not get minutes. D'Anthony Melton might not get minutes every night. Those are solid players. Right. I mean, like it's the guys who are coming off the bench. It might be Pods. It might be Hield. It might be Moody. But to your point, you're kind of proposing splitting up Kuminga into multiple pieces rather than trading Kuminga with 3, 4, however many future picks, maybe another young guy, a Moody or a Pods to go get somebody else. Because like I've been thinking a lot about guys like, Trey Murphy, who would cost a lot from the Pelicans. I've been thinking about like, what if Drew Holiday became available from the Blazers? Somebody like that, like stacking pieces together to go get somebody who's more expensive, like a Kobe White, something like that from Chicago. Just some of these names that are popping up. Or, what if the Pelicans say, yeah, we will trade Zion? Like a home run swing piece like that. Now, those are some of the names I've been thinking about for the Warriors. But you're thinking about kind of still supporting those older guys with depth pieces aside from Kuminga who fit.
I think when you look at their payroll, right, where they're at, and this is after years and years of being massive taxpayers. They're in a really strong place financially. And so not quite in the second apron, but like it's doable. It's workable. If you end up with another big salary, I feel like we saw this with the Lakers. You get handcuffed, right? If you do this one more move and it's like big money Steph, big money Jimmy Butler, big money this new person, and then Draymond Green, not quite the big money, but still large enough. Now you're locked in. It's like, you want to get better? Too bad. You better get used to the minimum salary bin. And that isn't a fun place to be. We've seen this a bunch of times.
That is why I like Trey Murphy, though. I mean, because he started year one of a 4-year contract, where year 4 he's going to be making $31 million. Like that's the one name. I think with marketing, like that's a big money deal. But like Trey Murphy, you get 4 years of runway where it's like, okay, that one makes sense.
To me, Trey Murphy kind of fits. I know it's more of a 1-to-1 salary move, but it's like that fits what I'm talking about. This is a young vet. He's smart. He knows how to play, and he's appropriately compensated. And we can fit him in and keep this thing moving.
Dude, he would become a star if he got traded to the Warriors. It would just be a perfect, seamless fit for that would happen. I agree with you. Like I think that's going to be one of the bigger stories, because I do think the Warriors, as good as they are on paper, they're still a move away, and upgrading Kuminga is the obvious route there. Moving on to my second one here, number 4 total. The Knicks offense. They hire Mike Brown as head coach. We see them play their first couple of preseason games, more motion, more movement, a ton more handoffs than we've seen from more of those stagnant Thibodeau offenses, running a lot of Brunson pick and roll, ISOs, whatnot, over and over and over. Seems like they're going to play with more pace. Seems like they're going to play with more motion. I'm sure it's going to be an adjustment period for the Knicks. I wonder, how quickly do they adjust? Does this team fully embrace playing that way? Is there a steep learning curve for a guy, especially like Brunson, after playing a certain way and shining a certain way? How does this affect their defense? Playing more, with more effort and energy and intensity on offense, does that make their defense worse? A lot of questions on my mind with the Knicks. I think ultimately, though, Mike Brown was the right choice with this type of offense he sort of envisions for Brunson and Cat and Bridges and Anunoby, but it's no guarantee ultimately to work.
Yeah, I also was really high on the Mike Brown hiring. I thought he's the guy that checked all the boxes as far as like credentialed, and obviously had been, to me, it was really big that the guy who's coaching the Knicks has to be someone who's been through some fire. And whether it's coaching LeBron or coaching the Lakers, right? It's like Mike Brown has been in like the hottest of hells of media attention and all that stuff. So coming to New York isn't exactly going to be this brand new culture shock thing for him. Offensively, obviously, he's grown a lot over the years. He credits a lot of it to his time as on the staff with the Golden State Warriors, kind of opening his mind. Obviously, we saw what he did in Sacramento at the time, the best offense in NBA history. Obviously, we just shatter that mark every single year now. But he's got that. But again, his bones are defensive guy, right? That's how he made a name for himself in this league. And so that's the part I'm more interested in. I like the motion offense. I think it's going to be good for everybody, including Brunson, because as we've seen time and time again throughout NBA history, whether it's Michael Jordan, whether it's Steph Curry, whatever, it's like, yeah, the easy thing is just to give him the ball and get the hell out of the way. But there's a cap to how good you can be, and also that takes a toll on you. And playing off ball frees you up a lot more and gives you more energy, I feel like, because it's not everything is just zeroed in on you. But the defense is the part where I'm wondering, because Tom Thibodeau wasn't a slouch defensively, and that Knicks team did not defend, namely because 2 of your starting 5 are guys who are minus defenders, Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns. And so what is Mike Brown going to do in order to adjust all that to make that better? I know they started Mitchell Robinson in the preseason game over in Abu Dhabi.
Do you like that decision? Do you think that's a positive for their defense?
I think that is the first solution you go to. I don't think that's the last solution, but you have to start with that one, because anything else, now you lost Mitchell Robinson. Mitchell Robinson sitting there and saying, better defensive. There we go. That's my cue, right? If you went any other direction, but man, you lose a guy. So you have to start with, we're starting Mitchell Robinson. Will it work? On some nights, yes. On some nights, no. But you have to start there, and as you make your tweaks. But the other thing I said, you have to demand more of your guys, specifically Karl Anthony Towns. You have to demand more of him. Like, he's not a bad defender because he's Dirk slow, right? He's a bad defender because he makes bad decisions a lot. And so that, I think he's at a point, and especially where this team is, championship contention is what they hope. You're at a point where it's like, hey, man, we need more. Whatever it is, whatever your level of like, I'm doing it, coach, it's not enough. We need more out of you. And I think, again, Mike Brown is a guy that can demand, but maybe not over the top demand like, how Tibbs would have been.
I mean, I think ultimately starting Mitch makes sense. And to your point about Cat, he makes a lot of poor decisions defensively. He made better decisions when he was playing next to Rudy Gobert, not just because Gobert is helping clean up for mistakes, but also I think Cat was in a position where he probably felt more comfortable defending a bit more on the perimeter, being a bit more of a help guy rather than being the primary guy in drop coverage like Gobert so often was. And even if he was, he still had that assistance behind him with that level of a rim protector. And Mitchell Robinson is not a Rudy Gobert level rim protector, but he's better than having a bunch of small guys and help behind you and where it's all on you. And so I think that move, to me, that's one of the things that still surprises me the most about last season with the Knicks. I know Mitchell Robinson missed a lot of time, but the fact that we didn't see two bigs as an experiment with any of the other Knicks bigs, like Jericho Sims before he got traded. Yeah. We barely saw it with Cat. Ariella Hekporty, who had some good minutes, deep bench minutes, barely saw him at all with Cat. And so I think like Tibbs missed opportunities during the season to play with two bigs. And then it's like, oh, damn, like we got to try this during the postseason because nothing else is working. And it worked. Like it looked pretty good with Mitch and Cat out there. And I think it makes sense to go with that first for their defense and for their offense. We'll see how that fits as well. For playing through both of those guys a lot in the post. Mitchell Robinson, of course, more of a high screen and roll guy, dive to the basket. We'll see how he adapts in that system as well. Before we get to Amin's next plot line, I want to remind you, if you're watching this video on YouTube, leave a comment because on Thursday, I'm doing a full mailbag episode answering all of your questions. So just leave a comment below with what your thoughts for the season ahead, a question you might have, whatever it might be, and I'll answer it in Thursday's mailbag edition of the podcast. All right, Amin, what do you have next?
All right, my third one is how the Houston Rockets adapt post VanVleet injury. And so, before the recent events, we kind of looked at the Western Conferences. OKC, Denver, and Houston. And then there's a gap, and then there's the next little group with the Clippers and the Lakers and the Warriors or whoever. And then VanVleet gets hurt. And the important thing to realize here is that the Rockets are pretty much hard cap, right? They can't just go out and get someone else. Like even signing someone to a minimum deal. I'm looking up how much breathing room they have. Yeah, they have 1.25 million. So you can't even sign anyone at minimum at this point. So they have to basically wait till prorated season. So I started thinking about, well, if you're the Rockets and you think, man, our window is right now. Is there a VanVleet deal out there? Is there someone you can go get? For instance, you mentioned Drew Holiday. Can I pick up the phone and call Portland and say, I got a bunch of extra. Just the idea of like, you got to go out in there and get somebody because the window is now. Or do you say, no, I like who we've got. I think Reed Shepherd is going to be amazing. And you take your chances. But then I go back to kind of like, do you really want your championship season to be decided by a combination of Reed Shepherd and Aaron Holiday? It feels like that's too big of an exhaust port on your internet, your space station that destroys planets, right? Like it's a little too risky there. And so you want something with a little bit more reliability, dependability, especially when we talk about postseason.
I do think this is absolutely going to be a thing for sure with the Rockets this year. To me, the thing that makes sense to do is you start the season with Reed Shepherd, Amen Thompson, put the ball in their hands, let them see what they have, let them develop, let them go through growing pains. And as long as you're not losing too many games, like if you're losing games and you're the 7 seed, and again, the West is so stacked, these games are going to matter. Like seeding will matter. You don't want to experiment too much because then you're in the play-in. But ultimately, I do think you need to give those guys time and see what you have in them. Does Amen Thompson get a little bit better as a shooter? Like, is he a liability when he runs point? Does Reed Shepherd look more like he did post his G League success? He had some big scoring games against OKC, among other teams, in the second half of the year. Does he carry that forward this season and start looking like the guy where you're not even thinking about making any moves. Maybe Reed Sheppard is your guy, and he's one of those rare young point guards. Like I remember when Rajon Rondo, second year with the Boston Celtics, KG, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, that 07-08 Celtics team. The question with that team was, well, can Rondo be the point guard? Right. And he turned out he could be the point guard because he did the things that team needed. Maybe Reed Sheppard can be that guy in year 2 of his NBA career, but maybe not. I think you have to find that out early in the year as the Rockets, and then that conversation will really come with them. Do they need to make a move? Who do they go for? And even if Reed Sheppard's really good, I mean, I love the idea of Drew Holiday. Like, if you're able to get Fred VanVleet to waive that no trade clause on his $25 million salary, like, please, that would be awesome to get Drew Holiday.
I think it's one of those things where you owe it to yourself. If you're the Rockets, you have to explore every single opportunity. It's so easy. People's like, oh, well, we'll get him next year. We're like, no, man, like that's not how this thing works. Because next year is next year, and you never know what might be the next thing around the corner. So I think you got to be aggressive. And if you're Fred VanVleet, I mean, there's worse places to go than Portland, I guess. I mean, like, I feel like if you're hurt for the year, it doesn't matter. Like, I won't even report. I'll stay at home, and then, I'll inform them, hey, you better be ready to flip me because I'm not going to stay, pretty much. So I think when you think about kind of this situation Houston's in, and I want to go back to what you were saying about, like, Thompson. Absolutely, that's the play. You put the ball in his hands, and then you kind of spread out from there. And then you hope Şengün can find his way, and obviously KD is KD or whatever. But the Sheppard part, the Reed Sheppard part, is like the next layer. It's like, okay, I'm going to get 20 minutes out of this position a night, right, with the current makeup. Is it going to be Reed Sheppard or is it going to be Aaron Holiday? And if it's Reed Sheppard, does Reed Sheppard defend to the liking of Ime Udoka, right? Because he's really big on that. He wants everyone he wants this defense to be physical and constant. And so does Reed Sheppard have that in him as far as, hey, I'm going to spend a lot of energy chasing people around being a pest, and maybe not as much. And I think that's the part where I get trepidatious, because I look at Reed Sheppard and say, well, what's his thing? Thank you. I've been doing Pablo Torre finds out. I look at Reed Sheppard and say, what's his thing? His thing is offense, is scoring, whatever, right? What do the Rockets need? Probably not that. They need someone who's going to keep this thing moving, make shots when called upon, and defend their position. And it's like, that doesn't really describe him today. Now,
maybe. I mean,
can he grow into that?
Can he transform into it? Because he is a defensive playmaker. He had a ton of blocks at Kentucky on 3-point shooters and steals and spark. I know it's college, but like he's
everyone's got a scrapbook. Everyone has a scrapbook.
Super scrappy. Like maybe he can transform into that, but I think, to your point though, that is the question with him. Can he survive defensively, or because he's so small, he's going to be the defender every time he's on the floor? Considering all the other length and versatility the Rockets have out there, they're going to attack Reed Sheppard no matter how quality he is or not. He's going to be the attack point. Can he survive? Whereas with Amen Thompson, he's one of the best defenders in the NBA already. You're not going to attack him, but you're losing something with shooting when Amen Thompson is out there. So it's about finding the right balance. I mean, ultimately, I think there's a chance this ends up a blessing in disguise that VanVleet is out, because you get to see these young guys. You're just ripping the Band-Aid off. You're going to find out what you have in these young guys and figure out what you really need. Because VanVleet has had his limitations, man. Like, he wasn't a perfect point guard. I don't think he was the perfect point guard for this team either. I really don't.
Right.
I think he had his limitations. He was just kind of the placeholder to me, while hoping Amen or Reed Sheppard become that at some point. But this undoubtedly, I mean, behind Oklahoma City, behind Denver, those two teams I think are clearly the top of the top in the Western Conference. And that'll lead me to my next one here with the Denver Nuggets. Which version of Jamal Murray does Denver get? Do they get that 2023 finals run version of Jamal Murray where he's in shape, He's bringing it consistently. During that run, he averaged 26 points per game on nearly 60% true shooting. Or do they get the guy who comes into the season a bit out of shape, up and down, extremely inconsistent? In his past 2 postseasons, he averaged only 21.2 points per game, only 51.6% true shooting. Do they get that version of Jamal Murray where you don't really know what you're going to get? Or do they get that version of Jamal that helped vault them from nice playoff team to co-star for Jokic and ultimately an NBA championship? And that's where I think they can close the gap with OKC or even surpass OKC, depending on the version of Jamal Murray they get. Because I love everything else in that roster. It's just Jamal Murray I have big questions about.
Let me play a different game with you. Will it even matter? Will it even matter? And the reason I say that is, I think with what they did, going out and getting, first of all, Cam Johnson, who I think is infinitely more reliable and a better fit than Michael Porter Jr. for this team.
Agreed.
Bringing back Bruce Brown, bringing in Tim Hardaway Jr. Like, I think they kind of, I'm not saying they don't need Jamal Murray anymore, but they put themselves in a position where they need Jamal Murray to be this otherworldly playoff presence like he's been earlier in his career. You just got to be good. You got to show up a bunch of times, but not every time. And we've got enough. And I thought the irony, of course, of Michael Malone for the last couple of years complaining, you're not giving me enough. You're not giving me enough. You got to give me enough. And then they get him out of there. And the first thing they do is they go out and get all the stuff that he was pretty much asking for. But I think that playoffs really hit home for Josh Kroenke, right? Like, oh, we don't have enough because we switched coaches. And Coach Adelman was like, yeah, I'm not playing those dudes. I'm going to play 6 guys or whatever, and Aaron Gordon's going to fall apart before our eyes because I can't trust any of these guys. And so the new front office with Ben Tenzer, obviously has been there the whole time, and John Wallace, who had been there but went to Minnesota with Tim
Connolly. Yep.
With Tim Connolly, yeah. So they went out and they rebuilt this thing. They gave Nikola Jokic and Coach Adelman the support they needed. And now Jamal Murray has less of a pressure to be amazing every single time. The other part of it, and it's going to sound like a cop-out, guy had been hurt, right? Like, he was coming off of last summer playing for Canada. He wasn't healthy doing that. Then he started the year slow, and he hasn't been 100%. So I think that's part of why he's disappointed over the last year plus. But the bigger thing for me is they got horses now, and I didn't even mention Jonas Valanciunas, who that's the best backup Nikola Jokic has had basically
not even close
since Nurkic, Nurkic, right? Like, and when Nurkic was his backup, he wasn't obviously anything close to what he is now. So,
and also with Valanciunas, last year's first round pick, Daron Holmes out of Dayton, super versatile big man, can shoot threes. Like, if they didn't have Valanciunas, he might have been the best backup of Jokic's career, and he hasn't even played an NBA game yet.
But it's gonna be interesting to see how they're able to, I think, lighten the load not only on Murray but also on Jokic. It's like how. I remember the game they played Washington, and like Jokic had like a 56-point triple-double, and they lost that game. And all I could think to myself is, I don't know how much more like that guy. Like, if you lose to the Wizards at the time, the Wizards before they started playing better. So this is Jordan Poole's Wizards, right? Like, I had 56 and a triple-double. Like, what more needs to happen for us to have a fighting chance to win a game? I thought that was just such a kind of snapshot of like, this can't go on forever. They've got to do something. And kudos to them. They went out and they did, I think, a little bit more than something. I think they did a lot.
Do you think the Nuggets are the favorite over the Thunder?
No.
Okay.
No, for 2 reasons. One is that's the defending champs, and nothing has changed for them, right? It's not like, they're doing the thing that won them a championship a year ago in 60 million games during the regular season, right? And 2 is, I think Denver still has Cam Johnson hasn't been a particularly durable guy in his career. You mentioned Jamal Murray. Aaron Gordon obviously has dealt with injuries. So they still have things to worry about as far as can we get everybody together and healthy and on the same page before we start talking about being the best team in the conference. But like I said earlier, when we list out the West, it's OKC, Denver, Houston, and then there's a gap, and then there's the next group after that.
What's your next one? I mean, your last of your four.
My last one is I don't know if this is something that's going to even be on the radar for NBA media people, let alone NBA fans, but the Suns Arena got renamed again. And so if you're keeping track at home, since 2020, since COVID, the Suns have played at Talking Stick Resort Arena, Phoenix Suns Arena, Footprint Center, PHX Arena, and now Mortgage Matchup Center. And the big reason, it's like, oh yeah, well, another silly name. The difference is Mortgage Matchup Center, sure, whatever the naming rights deal is, whatever it is, but what people need to realize is the owner of Mortgage Matchup is Matt Ishbia. In essence, he's basically saying, how much is the naming rights deal? All right, $2 million. All right, there you go. Take it out of my right pocket, put it in my left pocket. Like, you're not making money here, right? It's just creative bookkeeping in essence. And so that leads me down to, wait, is this the case because they couldn't sell? Like whatever the number was, they couldn't get that number, and rather than devalue the product, so to speak, and cut the price, they artificially created a new buyer to come in and meet that price until someone can top it. Or the other rampant theory here locally is right across from the arena, there's a massive billboard, Rocket Mortgage. Don't know who owns Rocket Mortgage. It's owned by Dan Gilbert, the owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers, a proud son of Detroit like Matt Ishbia, and bitter rivals. These two people hate each other. They're from the same town. They're the two biggest mortgage brokers basically in the nation, and they both own NBA teams, and they hate each other. And so you got this huge billboard across in the arena. It's like, this is bad. Look, we got to put an even bigger billboard, Mortgage Matchup, right on the front.
First of all, I didn't even realize that the name changed again. I see that just happened 3 days ago. The news came out. Crazy, it's happened again. I did not know about the billboard for Rocket Mortgage across the street from the arena. It makes sense that Ishbia would, feel a certain way about this and decide, I'm just going to name it myself. But I do think it's worth looking into or finding out if there's just no sales.
This is like the billionaire's version of Bottle Wars. Like you go, the guy's going to club like 7 bottles, 18 bottles, 35 bottles. And they're like, oh, like this is what they're doing. It's like, it's like billboard, arena. What's next?
Or it's like when Larry David and Curb Your Enthusiasm got the Spite store.
The Spite store, yeah.
Coffee shop. Latte Larry's.
Gotta have the scones though. Good scones got to be dry.
Exactly. Could have been that too. Let's move on to my final one here. How does the NBA media rights deal impact the fan experience? That to me is going to be definitely a thing with every game, every night. Some nights it's on Peacock. Sometimes it's on NBC on Sundays and Tuesdays. It's ESPN on Wednesdays. It's Amazon on this night and ABC on that night. It's different stations, different apps. How do fans adapt? How does this impact the game watching experience? Is the NBC broadcast amazing? Is it so great that it raises the bar for other broadcasts? Is that possible, or is it underwhelming? What's the Amazon broadcast like? It's just so much that we don't know with these broadcasts. How is it going to impact the fans? How is it going to impact the league? Because I know maybe it was like 6 or 7 years ago when around after the last CBA was signed, somebody in the league office high up said to me, they said, we're not worried about this next rights deal. We're worried about the one after that. Yeah. So 10 years from now or however long until those negotiations begin with the next CBA, people in the league office have said for quite a while they were never worried about this one, and clearly they weren't, considering all the big money involved. Mm-hmm. But how does this rights deal, how does this broadcast deal impact the fan experience and therefore the bottom line for the NBA? Is definitely, I think, going to be one of the stories in the short term and, of course, in the long term too.
Yeah, I thought that was one of the big failures of Adam Silver a few weeks ago when he was asked about that. He gave like this weird answer instead of just saying, hey, guess what? There are more free games now than there have been in the last 10 years. That's the answer. The answer is there's more. You don't have to subscribe or download anything. There's more free games available on national TV now than there have been in the past decade. That's number one. Now, if you're going to subscribe, now you've got even more. So whether it's Peacock, whether it's Amazon, like that's a dessert that you weren't planning on before you had the 3 courses. Now they've added the 4th course of dessert. So there's that. But the other thing is I didn't even think about this, but as you said it, I realized I haven't been curious of what Amazon's coverage is going to look like. I kind of have an idea what ESPN's is going to look like, but I just realized I have this internal expectation that NBC's has to be amazing. And I felt it as recently as last night. I'm watching Sunday Night Football, and as they're coming back from commercial break, you hear Round Ball Rock. It's like, the NBA is back on NBC, and you hear Mike Tirico even like really thrilled to talk. I'm like, oh man, yeah, NBA on NBC, and you know, the thing I've been saying is I hope they bring the entire retro package. I want a monologue before every game. I want, whether it's Bob Costas or whoever doing a voiceover, letting me know that this game isn't just a February Sunday game between 2 divisional rivals. This is for all the marbles in the universe and everything at stake, right? Those monologues did such a great job of marketing and selling our game, and I'm hoping NBC does not skimp on any of that. But for the fan experience, I imagine people just don't like change. And what they're complaining about is the change of having to look somewhere different for these games. But the reality is it's going to be better because we have more options available to everybody.
I think it's going to be better too. I hope for fans it becomes something that is a big boost to the broadcast experience, and I hope it raises the bar for everybody. I like the people NBC and Amazon both hired. We'll see how it all works out, though. A long year ahead, and we need those monologues. I mean, we need them. We need it. They can put them on social nowadays too. Put them everywhere before every game.
I texted No Eagle. So I'll write them for you, man. Like, just make sure it's in there.
I mean, he's got the voice. You get the mind for it. Amin, appreciate you joining me today, man. Have a good one.
No problem. Thanks for having me.